Where are the 2018-2019 Carolina Hurricanes now in 2023? We continue that discussion in this episode of Locked On Hurricanes.
You're Locked On Hurricanes, your daily podcast on the Carolina Hurricanes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hey there, Caniacs. I'm your host, Jared Ellis, and you're listening to Locked On Hurricanes on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And as always, thank you for making Locked On Hurricanes your first listen of this Friday afternoon. And this episode is, of course, brought to you by the lovely folks over at FanDuel Sportsbook, official sportsbook of Locked On. Make every moment more. Visit FanDuel.com/Locked On today to get started. And this is part two of our discussion of where the 2018-2019 playoff Carolina Hurricanes are now in 2023. Andrew and I, we had a blast recording this. It was super, super fun taking that trip down memory lane. So if you haven't listened to part one yet, go listen to it. Then come back to this one just in case you missed your favorite member of that roster. And of course, there will be a part three as well. And without further ado, here is part two of where the 2018-2019 Carolina Hurricanes are today. Now, moving on to another future Hurricanes Hall of Famer, and that is the captain for this season. That was Justin Williams. We have talked about Justin Williams a lot on this show over the past. So, he was a major piece of this team as a player and as a leader. He obviously set up Brock McGinn for the OT winner against Washington, like we mentioned earlier. Scored a couple really big goals in the playoffs. He didn't sign immediately heading into the next year. He didn't come back until about mid-season. And then, of course, he did retire after the 2020 playoffs when they got eliminated by Boston up in the bubble. Currently serving as, I believe, assistant to general manager Don Waddell, I believe. I don't know the official title, but he is doing front office. Manager. Yeah. He is doing front office stuff for the Hurricanes these days. And again, we've talked about this a lot of just the leadership that he brought to this team and the motivation that he brought to this team. This is what they needed. You had so many young guys on this team, and he was really able to help mold them into the players they are today.
Yeah, he was a top six forward for this team too. He scored like 20-some goals and 50 points, and he set the standard, of when things weren't good enough. There was an expectation. I can remember a game against the Tampa Bay Lightning somewhat late in the season. And of course, the Lightning that year were an incredible team, won the President's Trophy. The Hurricanes end up, I think, losing a lead in the third period and losing the game. And I remember we talked to him in the locker room after trying to ask him, is it just Tampa's skill or just – they were better or you guys are tired from all the games you've been playing. He said over and over and over again as an answer, no, we just pissed it away. He just kept saying that. And it was like that kind of, reinforced for you, like the standard that he was setting, like to make the Hurricanes winners, like that, anything else was unacceptable. In years past, that game would have been like, oh yeah, it's whatever. They had the lead, but they lost to a great team. Williams is like, no, that's not okay here anymore. We are here to win. And the other part, and that I know we've talked about before, is, in that season, he really helped not just rebuild the Hurricanes as a team into a playoff contender. He rebuilt the franchise too, rebuilt the fan base. Because remember, the Storm Surge was his idea. He was a driving force in recreating a lot of the excitement around the Hurricanes that had been missing throughout the playoff drought. So, no, I mean, the impact that Justin Williams made in just one season on the direction that the Hurricanes are going today is really immeasurable.
Yeah, and like I said, he's still part of the franchise, and everyone still absolutely loves him, and everyone knows just how much he means to this team on and off the ice. Again, he of course is retired now, so that is strictly off ice these days. But what he did to help mold the players that they have now, that you blow a lead like that, that's not acceptable. It's not, oh, we just lost to a better team. That's not the case anymore. He really set the standard, and between him and Rod, being those two guys there, that really, you couldn't have asked for better there, of getting the culture of where it needed to be. We all know about Rod Brind'amour, but Justin Williams, the same thing. He knows what it's like to win, and he also knows what it's like to lose. The guy has 3 Stanley Cup rings and a Conn Smythe trophy to his name. He knows what it takes to win, just like Rod Brind'amour. He knows what it takes to win. So you got these guys there in the locker room at the time. These really young kids in their late teens and early 20s. And they know what these guys have accomplished in their career. So when they say, hey, we can't do this if we want to put another banner up there, we can't do this, that carries weight. It's not like you or me saying it. There's just whatever. Those guys, they know what they're talking about. And Justin Williams, again, future Hurricanes Hall of Famer. I honestly think he'll probably be the inductee this year, whenever that gets announced, since Cam Ward got in last year and Eric Stahl has not officially retired. So he is. We could go on and on. We could be here for another hour talking about Justin Williams.
We have a Justin Williams podcast.
Yeah, exactly. Like, he is, like I said, future Hurricanes Hall of Famer. Like, plain and simple. That's all you need to know about him and what he has done for this franchise. Next up is, of course, Brock McGinn. We will not say his NSFW nickname here because this is a family show. But if you know it, you know it.
Oh, are you talking about his big pet rooster that people always like to talk about?
Yeah. He, of course, scored one of the most iconic goals in Hurricanes history. That, of course, was the double OT winner against the Washington Capitals. Again, I have the commemorative picture thing back there because that was absolutely phenomenal. There's no words to describe that one. I mean, great, amazing, whatever. That just doesn't encapsulate. And no one thought the Hurricanes were going to win that series. Knock off the defending champs. Football season is about to kick off, and FanDuel is giving you the chance to win all season long. Because right now, when you bet on a Super Bowl winner, you can get a bonus bet every time they win in the regular season. Just pick any team to win the Super Bowl, and you'll get bonus bets for every victory. You can use your bonus bets on spreads, player props, over-unders, and more. So right now, folks, go visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and start earning bonus bets with America's #1 sportsbook. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon. No one thought that was going to happen, and then they did it. And Brock McGinn, he's obviously a fan favorite while he was here. Folks loved him. He's a funny guy too, if you ever got to talk to him as well. And he stayed for 2 more years. And he obviously, we all remember that first line Brock McGinn stint when he just had it rolling offensively, like out of nowhere, which was awesome. He ended up signing with the Pittsburgh Penguins. He got waived and then claimed by the Ducks last year. I'm not sure if he is still with Anaheim.
I think he is. I'll
I
double
think he
check that.
is, because I don't remember the length of the deal he,
I think
I don't.
it was a 4-year deal with the Penguins, and last year was only the second year of it.
Yeah.
So he should still be just under contract with the Ducks.
Yeah, but yeah, fan favorite while he was here with the Hurricanes. He has been another one of the guys where, especially how they've had to rebuild the bottom six these past few years, talking about potentially bringing him back. Another one of those moves I just don't see happening. It's more likely than Lucas Walmark, but it's not one I see happening now. Obviously, wishing him all the best again. One of, if not the most iconic goal in Hurricanes history.
Yeah, I've talked about this before, but one of my favorite, Hurricanes memories and moments from that season was being at Players Retreat, watching that Game 7 with my friends, and the whole bar just being packed with Hurricanes fans and the eruption. That was just really cool. That showed you the buzz around the Hurricanes that was coming back to Raleigh that year. So Brock McGinn. Look, the Hurricanes made the right decision to not match what Pittsburgh offered him in free agency. And no, I don't think he'll be back, but certainly an iconic Hurricane.
Yeah, I agree. I think, the only way he comes back is, when his contract is up with Anaheim now, like a cheap 1-2 year deal, much like, Calvin DeHaan this past year. If it's something like that, then sure. But he's not going to get, like he did in Pittsburgh. That's the only way I see that happening. But again, that's, it's still 2 years away. Where the Hurricanes are at then, who knows? Where he's at then, who knows? But next up, we do have Warren Fogle. Playoff Warren Fogle was a menace. He scored some really big goals in the series against Washington. He ended up being with the Hurricanes for 2 more years. And of course, he was traded to Edmonton for Ethan Bear in that 1-for-1 trade then. And he is currently still with the Edmonton Oilers. Yeah, he was, again, another one of the guys that was a fan favorite. Guy, don't see him coming back. But yeah, he was another guy. It played a really big role with the Hurricanes getting to where they are now. And this was in just the way we're talking about these guys, whether it be Fogle, McGinn, whoever, it just really showed just how, this was a team. This was a team effort. This wasn't just, a couple guys, really, putting the team on their back, and these other guys show up every now and again. Like, this was like, everyone was like, we got a chance and we're going to do the best we can.
Yeah, I remember, like I said, I think he scored 2 goals in that game 3 against Washington. I remember game 4 against Washington was actually the first Hurricanes playoff game I ever went to as a fan. I think my brother bought me tickets for graduation, but I remember Warren Fogle scored less than a minute into that game and just blew the roof off. I mean, it was so much fun. So yeah, no. Good. That's a good 2-way winger with the Hurricanes. Played pretty well next to Jordan Stahl for the most part in his tenure here. It was logical for them to move on from him when they did. But definitely a big part of that team. A good player for the Hurricanes, and he's done pretty well with Edmonton. I mean, he's just a solid player, solid, third line winger. Can play up in a pinch if you need him to. That's pretty much all I got. I mean, the Hurricanes brought in a need for them at the time in a right shot defenseman in Ethan Bear when they made that trade. They were fairly crowded on the wings. Yeah. So, it didn't really make a ton of sense to keep Warren Fogle. But yeah, no, I think, he was a great player when he was with the Hurricanes, great in his role. You know what I mean? Like, he wasn't like Sebastian Aho or Andrei Svechnikov, but he was very good at what he did.
Yeah, he did his job well, and that's, at the end of the day, all you can ask for from these guys. Whether it be your top guy or a depth guy, as long as they're doing their job well, that's all you can ask for. And next up, we do have the fan favorite, and that is Jordan Martinook. This was his first and arguably best year with the Hurricanes. He, of course, went off this past season and had a career year in terms of numbers. He scored 16 goals in the regular season, obviously, again, still with the Hurricanes. Went off like last year, like I said, and then in the playoffs, he was Wayne Gretzky levels in the new series against the New Jersey Devils. He is entering the last year of his current contract. He is. I think he stays. Honestly, I do. I think it would be another short term kind of deal. I think 2-3 years maybe, because he is such a good leader for this team. He had in this past season, I think really showed that what he can still bring to the team. He was able to stay fully healthy for a whole year, and we said it a lot this past season. I do think him getting put on waivers at the start of the season definitely kind of lit a fire under him and be like, you know what? Yeah, I see all this stuff on Twitter and social media. Folks saying, "Oh, Jordan Martinook is overpaid. First line Martinook this, first line Martinook that." I think he really just used it as fuel for this past season and really showed like, hey, I'm still here. I can still play. And again, that first year with the Hurricanes was great. Like I said, arguably his best one it was the best one up until this past season. But yeah, absolutely great move for the Hurricanes when they traded for him with Arizona. And yeah, it's panned out great for them.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, you look at what he did that first season. He was a big part, again, obviously a big part on the ice in the regular season, scored 16 goals, played a lot with Andrei Svechnikov.
Yeah.
That's something that we don't remember a lot of. He was a mentor for Andrei Svechnikov his rookie year, his first, we've all seen the Mr. Svechnikov videos like from the bubble and stuff. The one of the Rangers being like down the hallway and all of a sudden like you hear that in the back and like they're all like looking around is like one of the funniest things I've ever seen. But no, I mean he played a big role in Svech's first couple of years in the league as his mentor. And I think also for that Hurricanes team, another guy with the excitement that he brought who helped rebuild the fan base.
Yes.
And the locker room too. I mean, the Hurricanes needed that big, energetic personality in the locker room for a young team that was looking to take a step forward. And he provided that.
And one thing, before we move on, I mentioned his leadership aspect of it. One thing that really stuck out to me, I believe it was this past season, or it could have been the one before, was when they were down in a game. I do not remember who they were playing. They cut to the Hurricanes bench, and there's pictures out there of it. I don't know if we could even find them at this point, but I remember seeing them of him coaching the guys on the bench, like just him being that leader, be like, hey, this is what we need to do, and him taking that leadership role really serious. It shows like, hey, that A he has on his chest, it's there for a reason. And that always sticks out to me. And just he's talk about how Justin Williams helped develop players, this current leadership group on the team. And obviously he had Shane Doan in Arizona, of course, that he got to learn from, but he has turned into a great leader for the Hurricanes, and that has always been something that has stuck out to me.
Yeah, for sure.
Next up, another fan favorite, one that we still, out of all the guys, if we're gonna bring someone back, this is probably the one we want to bring back, and that is Nino Niederreiter. This was a phenomenal pickup by Don Waddell in that trade with Minnesota, where they sent them Victor Rask for Nino Niederreiter. 1-for-1 for Victor Rask. To say they fleeced the Wild would be putting it mildly. And Nino was absolutely phenomenal in his time with the Hurricanes. 14 goals, 30 points in 36 games that first year after the trade on the top line with the Finns. Huge part of the Hurricanes' run to the playoffs that year. Stayed for 3 more years. A bit of a down year in 2019, 2020, but again, very, very good in 2020, 2021, and then 21-22. Signed a 2-year deal with Nashville, traded to Winnipeg at the deadline. There were many times when the Hurricanes offense was drying up over his time here, where he just put the team on his back and Aho can't get it going, Swesh can't get it going. All right, I'll do it. And I remember, when half of the Hurricanes roster was out with COVID, the man just put the team on his back.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, we got half an AHL roster here. No disrespect to them, but I gotta step it up. And like I said, a lot of these guys not really on board with bringing them back. But if the Hurricanes were able to reacquire Nino Niederreiter, we'd be all about it.
Yeah, I think, like you said, you mentioned that I think 14 goals, 30 points in 36 games after the deadline. We talked about how much the Hurricanes' top line with Aho and Teravainen carried them down that stretch run. Adding Nino Niederreiter to them took that line to another level. And again, I do not think the Hurricanes don't make the playoffs if they don't make that trade. I fully believe that, because remember, coming into January, they were near the bottom of the entire league, and they made a furious charge.
St. Louis was the worst.
And
Hurricanes
they won the cup.
Were the next one.
Yeah, and they made a furious charge to make the playoffs that Nino Niederreiter played a huge part of. One funny memory I remember about him, his first game with the Hurricanes, they got blown out at home by, I think, Ottawa. And I just remember after the game, Rod Brind'amour saying that he felt the need to apologize to Nino Niederreiter for that happening in his first game. Mm-hmm. So that was kind of funny. But yeah, no, again, another critical piece of this team. The Hurricanes, again, they don't make that push to make the playoffs if they don't trade for Nino Niederreiter. And then who knows what we're talking about now.
Yeah, and before you take these next two guys, one thing with Nino is not only was he a great player for the Hurricanes, he was also a great just ambassador for the organization, because anytime he was interacted with fans, he never made them feel rushed or anything, super polite. I remember training camp following this season here, that 2019 training camp, he was coming out to go to his car. He was FaceTiming, I think at the time, girlfriend or fiance. I'm not sure if they've gotten married since then, but he literally said, "I gotta go," and hung up to talk to the fans and take pictures. And it wasn't like a quick, hey, take a picture, move on, go about his day. No, he took his time with everyone, and he made everyone feel like he cared. And he was a great ambassador for the organization. And that's what you want. You don't want a player to be a jerk or whatever. He was absolutely phenomenal when it came to the fans and representing the organization, and that was phenomenal. We actually have, I remember God, I forget what year they were still at Raleigh Center Ice was the practice facility. They hadn't moved to Wake Competition Center yet. I was one of the schedule posters that they used to do. I don't know if they still do them now. I haven't seen them in a while. I was getting everyone to sign it for my girlfriend for Christmas, and he was talking about he was saying, "Oh, that's such a good idea," all that. He was all about it, which was great. And we have some of his skate blades. We bought them at the Hurricanes yard sale, but they're actually Minnesota skate blades, which is really cool. I'm not sure where we have them, but yeah, absolutely phenomenal Hurricane on and off the ice. But Andrew, why don't you take these next two guys? I'm sure you're gonna have fun with these.
Well, one yes, one no, because one of them is unfortunately kind of sad in terms of where they are now.
Yeah.
But Saku Maenalainen, signed over from Finland. I have no idea if I just said that right. And moving on, good physical bottom six winger, good guy, fun player. Went to Finland for several years after leaving the Canes. Was with Winnipeg last year. Currently a UFA. And then you had Michael Ferland, who was part of the, Elias Lindholm, Noah Hannafin, Dougie Hamilton trade. Had a great start to the year for the Hurricanes playing with the Finns, exactly kind of what they needed, almost a little bit in that definitely more feisty, but a little bit in that Nino Niederreiter role of a goal-scoring power winger. Ended up getting banged up a lot, played 9 games in the playoffs. In free agency, he signed a 4-year deal with the Canucks, but quite sadly, he has not played a game since the 2019-20 season due to concussion issues. He is now an unrestricted free agent and is very, very likely retired. Again, very unfortunate. You never like to see that happen with guys, especially concussions. The biggest hope is just that, Michael Ferland can get through those issues and have a good, healthy, happy life with his family after hockey. Because I think it was him at one point that year. I remember one of the cool things, he brought his daughter into the locker room with him, like his little daughter, for a post-game scrum. And he was like holding her as we're talking to him. And there's like a shot from the TV interview you can see of I'm in the scrum and he's got like his little daughter and I'm like smiling at her and she's like hiding her head against her dad, like doesn't want anything to do with me. But yeah, I certainly hope for the sake of Michael Ferland and his family that he is doing better and that, he gets through any lingering issues that he might have from those concussions and just can enjoy his time with his family and life after hockey.
Yeah, concussions are no joke. That's for sure. I've talked about some of my issues with them. They're no joke. And whatever he has to do to have the best quality of life post hockey, again, I do think at this point very much likely retired. Considering he hasn't played in so long, and what caused him to not play for so long, I definitely think he's unofficially retired. But moving on to the defensemen, we're going to start with the third untouchable member of the Hurricanes core, and that is Jacob Slavin. He was his usual self in 2018, 2019, and he has just continued to get better year after year. Just doing Jacob Slavin things. It's the best defensive defenseman in the NHL. So, no big deal there. He has 2 years left on his contract as of right now. Obviously, at the end of next season, he is going to be getting a very, very nice contract extension to lock him up long term. And I believe with his age, that may lock him up to essentially retire a Hurricane. Yeah, he's 29 years old as of recording. So say he signs an 8-year deal, whatever. That pretty much ensure that he retires a Hurricane at that point, which is what I think is definitely going to happen.
Yeah, I agree. We don't need to spend a lot of time on this just because we've talked so much about Jacob Slavin, but it was kind of cool, this year when the Hurricanes finally got good, got into the playoffs, got more relevant, to see the larger hockey world, finally taking a notice of, oh, hey, this Jacob Slavin guy, he's like really, 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 really good. So yeah, that was kind of fun to see that year.
Yeah, it was really fun. And like I said, he just continues to get better year after year after year. Team MVP year after year. My preseason pick for team MVP this year. Absolutely phenomenal. Future Hurricanes Hall of Famer. Does everything he needs to do for this team. Next up, Brett Pesce, another really big part of this team. He mainly played with Justin Falk that year. And he has continued to be one of the biggest bargain defensemen in the NHL. And he's under contract with the Hurricanes for one more year. But as we've talked about a lot this offseason, we could very much see him getting traded soon, which will suck because he is really stinking good for this team and has been for, gosh, how many years has he been in the league at this point? He
I think
yeah, like he's
8 years.
yeah, something like that. He's been so good for this team. So it would definitely suck to see him go if and when that happens. But man, yeah, he's been an incredible part of this team and was then back in 2018, 2019. All right, folks, we hope you enjoyed part 2 of where the 2018-2019 Carolina Hurricanes are now. Again, we had a blast talking about them taking that trip down memory lane. So stay tuned for part 3. And in the meantime, make sure you're following the show along on Twitter or X at LO_Hurricanes, myself at Jared Ellis _96, and Andrew on there as well at A Schnitt 53. And we will talk to you guys in the next episode, folks. And let's go, Canes.